Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Ascension Teachings, and today we're going to go into how to communicate with the other realms, whether it's from being consciously in a physical state connecting with the other realms or astrally as well. So there is a difference because you can have astral experiences and then you can have physical ones as well, but either way there's always three things included with it, and we'll go into that today. And I've mentioned these before, but I want to give a bit more clarity with this as well. So to start off with, I want to talk about sensations. So we could feel temperature changes, it could feel like you're being touched or like a static electrical feeling. Many ways that sensations happen on the body. And as I've said before, what's happening is it's your light body overlapping something else's light body, whether we can perceive it in the five sense reality or not. Now sometimes, or a lot of the times, what you'll find is that the communication will have a lot of feelings and emotions with it. Sometimes some of these beings, they don't communicate the way that we do here, so you've got to be observant of feelings and emotions coming through. So you can feel a sensation on the shoulder, and if it's very similar, next time you could pretty much bet it may be the same being that's coming through. It's a telltale byproduct that comes through with it. The next thing, thoughts. This is the main way. Ideas, epiphanies, concepts, knowing things to be true but you're not sure how. I keep repeating myself because these are things that really need to be installed in one's consciousness to understand multidimensional communication, along with sensations, feelings, emotions, as I was saying. Now, how thought works, I actually call it thought transfer. This is how everything works from my understanding. So you've got this one unified frequency, this field, which is source, but what's happening is everybody's Merkaba. This is where they communicate, we could say, transdimensionally from, multidimensionally, psychically. What's happening is a being will send a thought, whether they're in a physical body or not. What's happening is it goes through the crown chakra out into the light body Merkaba, goes through that unified field, through intention with where it's directed. It hits your light body, comes down through the crown chakra, through the right side of the brain to the left. It decodes into words. It could be simple words, it could be thoughts. This is what I mean, thoughts of words, ideas, concepts, knowing things to be true but you're not sure how. So this is where I've said, imagine you're a computer, that field is the wireless internet. What happens, or a USB stick, what happens when you drag a file from the USB stick or you download a file? The folder appears, it could be a word. That word and the data, information compacted in that file folder could be a sentence, it could be paragraphs, it could be chapters, it could be a book of information, but sometimes that can take a bit to integrate why it's going from the Merkaba light body into the physical body. The mind's eye is another way. So the mind's eye is basically, like I'm saying, it's a television device tapping into frequencies to where you can see things happening elsewhere. You can see the beings, you can experience other realms, other landscapes and other places. Much happens through that. Now, a tip with that is you can use your imagination with it to start opening it up, among many other things that we've mentioned throughout the series. So that's a very big thing, is the mind's eye. So when you combine these senses, sensation, thoughts, and the mind's eye, these are the three ways that we go transdimensionally into the cosmos from a linear state while we're in the human biological computer. Now, over time, you can start to include the other senses. Some people naturally have them where they can smell smells. Like if you interact with Kuan Yin, a lot of people report, including myself, I've smelt the jasmine sort of scent that comes in with her. You might start to get taste, certain things happening. So over time with practice, what happens is the other senses will start to open up, like remote viewing. Remote viewers can taste certain tastes, smell certain smells. What happens is the more that you're working with the psychic senses, those things will naturally develop over time, but it does take practice, and don't be surprised if or when it happens. So yes, it could be smells, tastes, sounds, a lot of different things happening. You can even start to see things in the physical world, like apparitions, wispy stuff, full-blown apparitions and beings manifesting. These things can happen as well. What's happening is you start affecting one sense, the other senses slowly pick up on it and they start to enhance and develop from my experience. As you've seen throughout the series, I'm very big on observing sensations. This is something, again, which I do recommend, because the more that you do it, the more that you're opening up transdimensionally, you're observing sensation, thoughts, anything coming through with the mind's eye. Taste, smells can come through as well, like I'm saying. So everything really has to do with not pushing it, but being aware, and with awareness, observation. And when you start to get stuff, it's not reacting, but going with the flow. It's being an observer at a scene, like something could be playing out in front of you. What do? In this case, it's just observing what's going on. And the more that you can do that, the more that you'll intuitively be able to work projecting thoughts back and forth. So that's what's happening, is that through sensation, yes, we can get feelings and emotions. Through thoughts, when you're receiving the thoughts, what do you do for communication? You project those thoughts back. So even if I'm in a body where I do have physical interactions, whether I'm on a craft, whether it's astrally, in all those states, there is always sensation, thoughts, and even imagery going on. So, for example, with Shiji or Penkei, I will see them, interact with them, I'm feeling their frequency, they've got their own specific frequency in the way that they affect my body. With that, there is like this data information dump, very quick, and at the same time, some of the time, there is imagery like that just flashing over and over. So I'm seeing the concepts and ideas with like a narration of what's being explained, so they can show me certain things. That's the best way I can describe it. And even in the astral state, it's the same thing. You're still, even in the light body, you're going to feel sensation, you're going to get thoughts, and you're going to get imagery as well. So some of you are already naturally great at one of these gifts. I actually reckon that everyone naturally is great at one of those gifts. What I recommend is working with what you're good at to start off with. So you might be great at sensing energies, but with that you'll get emotions and feelings, like I'm saying. You might be great with telepathy or thought transfer. You receive a lot of thoughts, ideas, transmissions, and what you can do is start projecting that back. Who are you? Who's sending me these thoughts? Now, it's not to say we don't have our own thoughts. Of course we do. But like I've said before as well, there is different ways to deviate between what's what. It's like I could ask you a question before I get to the end of it, your higher self could jump in and go boom and tell me whatever it is that I've been asking you. With guides and other aspects of you that coexist, and we're not talking the divine aspect as another aspect, but other aspects that are out within source experiencing things, not what's in the Godhead, we could say. It's gonna be pretty much direct like the divine self, but there'll be a slight delay, just a tiny bit of a delay. And if it's you in the human mind, it's almost like how you say something. That's how slow the thoughts are. It's like speaking speed. And of course, like I've mentioned in the past as well, it's deviating between what is the information about. Is it about you becoming a better person and being of service? Is it the opposite? And then, of course, we've got the trickster energy that sits in the middle, that's nor good nor bad. But if you act negatively, it will give you negative information or experience. Or if you act positively, it can do the same thing. But it will, a lot of the time, have nonsensical information with it. And of course, there's this catch-22 in the middle, that sometimes you'll get information that just doesn't make sense at the time, but in a day, 2 days, 3 weeks, 3 years, you can go, you'll have an aha moment, which means that you're ready, your consciousness has been risen to the state that you can understand what they were trying to communicate. And that happens to me, it happens to everyone. Sometimes that's just the case. The big thing with all this is going with the flow. And with that said, the more that you can allow the experience to just, happen and go with the flow with it, the longer those experiences can happen as well. Sometimes included with this, you could get symbols, codes, which can be trans-dimensional communication. It's like some symbols could actually be a book of information or have multiple aspects to the information with what's in that symbol. We see that a lot with ET symbols. You could get light language, or sometimes it's known as speaking in tongues, depends on the cultural background. But there is one core, we could say, light language, and then there's light language, star language. It's pretty much the same thing. There's different dialects, but what happens is when you hear the light language, and a lot of people can do it themselves, a lot of you can do it, I can do it as well. What's happening is it's when you're being hit with those tones and the frequencies, there is like multi-dimensional data in it that you interpret through feelings, emotions, and you may even see stuff as well, and get telepathy sort of going with the intuition of what the information is about. So like I said, using your imagination with this is great as well, because the beings that you're working with, and when you're in a trans-dimensional state, it can be not so vivid, it can be a bit hazy, but through the imagination, they can meet you halfway. You can even create a meeting place when working with the beings that you're working with on a regular basis. It might be a lake with a mountainside, it could be a crystal city or a city structure from light, many different ways, but we're so indoctrinated with that our imagination is fairy tale, but there is more to it than that, like I've said so many times. And with this, the biggest thing that I find with people is that you've got to kick any doubt to the side. So what I'm saying is you've got to kick doubt to the side when going multidimensional mind. If not, that doubt keeps you in body mind. And when you're doing that, it's blocking you off from what's coming through. So again, it's not like you're doing it as a job. In terms of readings and tuning in and things like that, I have to be on my game. But for people starting out, have fun with it. You will make mistakes at times. You won't be spot on at times. Doesn't matter. Don't let it deter you. The more that you practice, the better you're going to get. And what we do find is that there'll be times when you're really good and you'll dip down, usually when starting out. And when you go back up, what's happening is you'll be better than what you were when you started. So there is this process, but don't be deterred like, oh, I'm getting completely off the mark at the moment with what I'm working on or psychically what I'm getting. Don't let it deter you, but you've got to kick that doubt to the side and go with the first thing that comes to mind. If there's too much of a pause, as we see with a lot of psychical studies, what's going to happen is your body, computer, brain is going to make information up. So sometimes it might be an object that has no smell associated with it. You go to think about smell, and what happens, no smell's coming through. You focus on it for another 10 seconds, bang, you'll make a smell up that's associated with that object that isn't there, or a colour, or an emotion, or something. And that's where you've just got to go with the first thing that comes to mind. And even what happens is, yes, I'm trained in remote viewing, but what I do a lot of the time when I'm interacting with beings or I'm trying to get information, I go through the five sense reality in a way that we can perceive things here, especially when doing remote viewing on certain places or people or certain things like that. These days, I've thrown out the way that the military started it, and I do it completely intuitively. And I focus my intention, of course, do a clearing beforehand, and then after that, what's the first thing that comes to mind through the five senses? With sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. I go through each sense and just write it down. Just bang it out really quick. A lot of the time they scribble, but it's a way that I can understand it, and then I go back over it. And then you can start to pin certain topics or structures or subjects within that matter. Again, go through the five senses, just write it down, and you can keep going, and then all of a sudden you could look at it like one big jigsaw puzzle. And a lot of the time we find that most people are, once they're good at it, they're at least 70 to 90% plus accurate. Pretty much 100% of the time they're in that ballpark range there. And the guides will give you confirmation, the physical, like I was talking about. So an example of this is, you could get information, and then what happens is you go about your day, you go and have a coffee, lunch, go about your day, go to work, and then a work colleague, a friend, could say something to you that there may be meaning behind it for them, but it may dovetail and confirm information you just got. Or they might say something to you for no reason, but it's like confirmation, like as if the guide's speaking through them physically to let you know, right, what you got intuitively isn't made up. You could go online and you know, for example, you could go on social media and you see a post and it's got exactly to do with what information you just got. So this is a way, or numbers, or songs. They can play songs that have got messages in them that it's just like, all right, this is just what I got. How weird is this? So there's different ways in the physical that the guides will work through people, manipulate situations, even give you a thought, look at the clock, and you just think, you don't even think, I had a thought to look at the clock. You look at the clock, 11:11. Many different symbologies or meanings behind numbers, of course, and certain words, but food for thought. Of course, we want to be discerning as well. So like I say to people, look at the fruit from the information. Is it about you becoming a better person, being of service? If not, kick it to the curb, because anything an ego or you're special, all these different things, it's not how it works when you're working with beings that are of service for the light, to help you empower yourself, to help uplift you and do the mission that you're here to do as well. So it's about becoming a better person when we're using these abilities. It's not to manipulate our reality in a negative way. It's all about being able to be of service. That's why with my gifts, I just want to be of service for people. So if it's the opposite of that, really check the information, the source, and what's coming through. A lot of people delve into this without knowing protection mechanisms, things of that nature, and they can get hijacked. Their life can go downhill from there. And if you're not sort of coming from the heart with it and got good intention for what you're doing, really check why you're doing all this as well. So during all practices, just be aware it could be other aspects of you coming through, ET beings, spirit guides, angels, the masters, ascended masters, nature spirits, elementals, earth beings, inner earth beings, Gaia, all these different things can come through. So in a way, it's just what we interact with, and we're all sort of helping each other, even if it's different, we're in different dimensions, we're all sort of helping to pick each other up and grow and evolve as well. And don't be surprised with that, if it happens to you in terms of that you start interacting and you're even able to help certain spirits or guides as well. There's been spirits on the other side that I've sent to where they need to go, or to the light, things like that. These are unexpected things that I wasn't aware of once I sort of really started tapping into these abilities. And sometimes beings just need to know that, it's okay, you're safe now, you can stay if you want, but you can also go, and if you go to the light. And there's a lot of confusion with that, but when you see the light on the other side, it's going with the heart. And when you feel that heart and blissful energy, that's something that the AI, or what these people call soul catchers, can't imitate. They can't imitate the love and the bliss from that. It just, not to the extent that we talk about with the fake realms when you're in a meditative state. When you see the real light, you'll be aware, and so you've got to go with that heart. What I've experienced as well is when you're in that state, if you've got low energies, you can experience dark realms, and what you do is you center yourself, power yourself up, and then what it does is it raises your frequency, and you start to experience better realms, and it goes up and up and up and up as well. So it's really important to be centered when you're doing exercises, practices. Everything's not love, light and bliss, but if you're really negative and really down, really check and do. That's what always doing the clearings, very important. Look, with all this too, the goal is to reconnect with your own God self, even if it's for short periods of time, and eventually that will happen for all of you. You'll get this unbounded blissful state. But there is too much out there where you're taught not to interact with any energies. But the thing is, they're doing the same thing as well. We go into these sort of interplane states in between dimensions where we interact with all that is, and a lot of the times our friends and our family and masters and angels and ETs on the way back to source, and that's what they're doing as well. So just be open-minded that don't judge a book by its cover as well, because some of these masters, they would look really weird to us and maybe scary, but you feel their energy and you're like, this being is so enlightened and so evolved, but it's grown and developed in a different environment or through its soul journey. It might look like something that you've never seen. So don't judge any of these beings in that concept. It's by the fruit of the information and what you feel with them as well. And like my friend James Gilliland says as well, the mind you seek is the mind that you connect with. So it's really checking your intention before doing any practices or exercises, and a lot of the time not controlling it, but just being in that positive state, because you'll attract like-minded energies out there as well. And to help with this, it's always great to do breathing techniques before anything. It's working with the prana, the chi, the life force, that everything's made up of, and working and having gratitude for each breath and breathing out and engulfing that energy more and more. And one thing that can help with this is having a certain area or place in your home of where you do your practices. It can build up the energies and even create a portal. We are portals ourselves. All of us are. Some people go, that person's a portal, that person's a portal. The fact is, if everybody wakes up to their own power within, we're all a portal. It's through the Merkaba light body that we are a portal. But having certain places where you do your practices, or a certain time each day, or it doesn't have to be a certain time, but having a certain area, just a peaceful, relaxing space that every time you're tuning or doing your work or your readings or whatever you're doing or your exercises, that can help build up the space to where it can make it easier over time to tune in and tap in and go transdimensional as well. So it builds up the energy in that area where you're doing it, makes it easier and easier over time as well. And as I say, it all comes down to intention. When you let go, this is when things start to happen. And a lot of the time it happens when you least expect it, but you'll be aware of it. You'll have a thought. It's like me with UFO sightings. I'm not out there sky watching on hours on end unless I'm with groups, but most of the time I just walk out, look up, and there's the craft. So the path to self-mastery can be a long road. The self-discovery phase you go through, this can literally take you years. So don't expect it to be overnight. Look at the Tibetans for an example. Some of them, like I say, spend 30, 60 years or more trying to obtain the rainbow light body. Some of them do, some of them don't. And finding what works for you and going through trials and tribulations of what's working and what doesn't. Now, if open to it today for this exercise, what I recommend is sitting down, doing a clearing, really looking within, and coming from the heart of creating an affirmation for you. So it could be something very simple, like my friend Bruce, he says, you're an amazing, powerful being. You could say that over and over. It's finding your own affirmation to help raise your frequencies at times. James Gilliland at the ranch, a lot of people will walk around the Field of Dreams where the skywatching field is, and people have been spontaneously healed there. And he says or recommends they walk around the field just going, I've always been happy, whole and healthy. I've always been happy, whole and healthy, as they're walking around. So what I want you to do is just find just a short, quick affirmation that works for you, that's coming from the heart, and you can swap this up and change it over time. For some periods, it might be you need to boost your confidence, have something to do with that. It could be that you need to have more love and receiving love in your life. It could be to focus on that. So it's finding individually for yourself what works for you and then working with that, because these things actually do work, affirmations. And I've gone through that before, but this is something where I want you to go into the heart and go, all right, what do I need help with at the moment? Look at your own baggage. Look at what's affecting you in your life that you could be better at or be open to, or what you need to work on, which it could be love or listening to people more or a number of things. And then see what you write down and then use that for an affirmation, even for a few days or a week, and see what starts to happen. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Ascension Teachings, and thank you for watching.